On the show today, a couple of signings, a couple of hand-picked talking points from each of us, and then a couple of recruitment targets to finish the show.
Can't wait.
And today we can announce that the Perth Bears are about to become part of the National Rugby League competition.
Yeah, we are the Grizzwolds, Grizzly lifelongers, a dysfunctional community, a Perth Bears podcast, independent and fan-focused. I'm Phil. I'm a sports journalist and broadcaster. And as always, I'm joined by Mitch. Say g'day, Mitch.
G'day, Mitch.
How are we?
I'm well, mate. Well,
Good feedback after the first
great
step?
feedback. Got some good feedback. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
good.
They
good.
did say I'm the more attractive one of the two of us. So.
And clearly the more organised with your kit as well.
Oh, mate, look, we'll say I'm organised, but we know behind the scenes hasn't really worked out the way I planned. But with any luck, I'll have the best piece of merchandise between the two of us for next session.
There's a tease.
Watch this space. Watch this space.
For those watching on YouTube, I've got the 92 edition North Sydney Bears kit, New South Wales Rugby League logo on it as well. I've got one of the later editions as part of my backdrop as well. So if you're listening via one of the podcast players, then try and find us on YouTube at some point as well. Podcasts as viewed on YouTube these days, a great background living room fodder. So go and give us a click. I'm pretty impressed with the numbers coming off F1, I must admit. Now, what I'm also pretty impressed with is a couple of signings, which we'll get to in just a moment's time, Mitch. But first off the bat, I thought I'd just jump in with a quick hitter. So an email came through from the Perth Bears official club yesterday that they want fans to come up with ideas to name their bear, to name their mascot, make history, brag forever. I'm wondering if you had any ideas on this. Now, just a quick one, a quick trip down memory lane. I'm not sure if you remember the name of the bear that used to circle around North Sydney Oval back in the day, the human-sized mascot. His name was Barney. The big bear. His name was Barney. He was awesome. I got plenty of high fives under the fig tree back in the day when I was in the first 10 years of my existence before the league decided to take away my favourite sporting team. So he was Barney. I actually thought that the name of our show, the Grizzwolds, I think Grizzwold is a great suggestion for the name of the mascot over in Perth. Did you have any suggestions?
Look, I've had a couple, but they're kind of corny, like Bazza. I like the name because it's a real Australian name. And being Western Australian, they sort of, they're very rustic. And I was trying to think of one that had a bit of a play on Humphrey B. Bear, but like as his long lost cousin. I just couldn't think of anything, but I think Grizzwold's a great name. But I think Bazza and Shazza. So if they have to have a female version, they can have Bazza and Shazza, like Bazza the bear and Shazza the bear. Now I've only got one vague memory of Barney, but I've only got to see a couple of games growing up from memory. So, but I sort of wish I'd lived in North Sydney at that time and I didn't have to travel.
And we'll get to that as well, where you grew up from in just a moment's time. Look, the other one, maybe this is silly, but just straight up Red, R-E-D, paying homage to the old WA club, of course. Red Bear, that was probably a drink that you tried back in your uni days.
Did I try them? Pretty sure I was sponsored by them.
So there you go, a couple of suggestions if you didn't, for any listeners that hadn't heard or seen that.
Someone can think of a name that has the North Sydney and Perth initials before the bear. Would be a great idea. That'd be pretty cool. Play on words. I'm not that smart, so I can't think of it, but I'm sure someone is.
There'll be someone out there smart enough to come up with a name for the mascot, I'm sure. But yeah, Grizzwold, not a bad idea. It would be plenty of free publicity for us as well. Or maybe it would just eat into all of our SEO search, one of those two.
But look, we can claim royalties, so...
That's true. That's true. We were here first.
I reckon Grizzwold should be our submission.
Yeah, probably. It's probably fair enough.
Yeah,
I'll get onto some. My people can talk to their people. We'll figure that one out. Couple of signings now. We'll start with the one that we alluded to last week. It wasn't official then, and shout out to one of my media mates, Isaac Issa. He's a young up and coming newsbreaker. He was onto this one. So and it's close to my heart. I'll explain why. We'll get through this quickly. But Mikołaj Oledsky is his name. He's a front rower playing in the Super League right now, and he has Polish heritage. He's from the Gdansk region in northern Poland. I actually married a Pole, so I've been with a Polish woman for about 9 or 10 years, and I've been to Poland probably 6 or 7 times in that span. Nice. I can speak a little bit of Polish, not enough, if you ask my better half. But to have a Polish player join the Bears ranks is truly a dream come true for me and Absolutely. My wife and my sister-in-law. And so we're all going to have to get used to pronouncing his name as well. So that name now, he's dropped the little dash that would appear on the L in his first name, which actually turns an L into a W sounding thing. So it's so it's actually Mikołaj Oledsky. But yeah, Mitch, I believe you saw him in action over the weekend. Yeah. So talk us through this.
Well, I said, I've been obviously keeping up to date with the Super League, and he was one bloke I noticed sort of last year, and this year he's been a bit of a workhorse. But over the weekend, I really saw him hit his straps, and I saw him line a bloke up. I can't remember the guy's name from Hull. I think it actually might have been Brad Arthur's son, because he's playing for Hull at the moment, and lined him up and folded him in half, and it was perfectly legal. And looked over him, and I was like, "Yep." And he was able to break break the line a couple of times, and he actually had a couple of steps. Like, I was, what props do you know who are able to sort of run a bit at a decent pace and then able to step some people? So, yeah, I didn't actually think we'd ever land him, because when he came out and initially said he wasn't interested, or not that he wasn't interested, he was just like not really talking about it. I was thinking, okay, we've lost this guy. So having him sign on, I'm again very excited. And again, brings back to last week's chat about Marquise. I think he could almost be that guy. I think he's a big name, in my opinion. Yeah,
interesting.
Love him.
Yeah. Well,
and he's got a name that actually stands out. So all the other teams, like, got Fusuma Malawi and but he's one of those names that you just I can see Ghanaian just basically having a great time with it.
Oledsky.
Yeah,
don't
absolutely.
mind it. We need an enforcer as well.
Yes,
sort of the pick of our forwards that we've signed so far: Josh Curran, Liam Henry, CSC for Talakai, Scott Sorensen. Some names there, but they're either sort of more of the workhorse, just getting through a stack of work, or that experience and leadership that a guy like Sorensen will bring. But we don't have that edge yet, so it could well prove to be that he provides some of that, which would be awesome. The other one now, again, someone with a bit of firebrand. Maverick Gaia, son of a Western Reds great, of course. Yes. And I'm sure part of the rationale here is a little bit of that nostalgic factor for the older league fans over in WA as well. But 14 NRL games to his name at the Panthers. He's with the Tigers now. Probably more of an edge forward than a middle forward, one would suggest. And our edge forward depth isn't quite there yet. Now, look, whether he turns himself into a consistent first grader, time will tell. But certainly not a bad little depth piece as well.
No, again, and he sounds like a decent bloke. So as I said, it talks about culture
and character.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the other thing that Oledsky would bring, because talk about needing he's that type of player who's not afraid to do be the bad guy, so to speak. He'll ruffle feathers, but also behind the scenes, a great bloke. So I think these are great signings. I think Mav guy, I don't know much about him on field. I haven't seen much of him on field, but if he's a guy, you can almost guarantee that he's a good bloke, because the guys are known to be there sort of to good people. So he's obviously been raised from good stock. So I think it's a good signing, regardless of whether or not it's a publicity stunt. I think it's just having good people around the club is vital. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
Another couple of forwards to add to the Perth Bears ranks. Mitch, kick us off. What do you want to talk about?
Look, you sent me through a thing, also a picture or an article about how the Western Force are struggling.
Yeah, and quickly I'll jump in. So it was the rugby column on Instagram reports, actually via the Australian's Christy Doran, one of my old colleagues, but reports that the Western Force are in financial distress again with a changing of business model to non-profit used to attract more funding. Again, the Force are struggling, having another pretty lean season as far as their, Super Rugby Pacific campaign is concerned, and that's no different to previous seasons. And it sort of makes you wonder whether people are going to jump on this as a concern for the Perth Bears over in that AFL dominant market, or vice versa, Mitch.
Yeah, exactly. But again, so when I read that, my immediate thought was, oh crap, as you say, like the public's going to jump on this and go, well, then rugby league can't work. But I say, as almost immediately after I read that, they came up to the junior registrations in rugby league is skyrocketed. So I think that's fantastic for the club itself in moving forward, and it basically has potential to shut all the doubters up, because you can't. The idea of building a club that lasts, you want to have good grassroots, good foundations, and the fact that they've gone about doing that. So whilst the club at a NRL level is doing great things about signing players and all that stuff, they've also done a lot of work behind the scenes in terms of getting the grassroots, getting people involved. Time will tell, but yeah, the fact that they've had it's just exploded within the last sort of 6 to 12 months.
And I don't think it really should matter to us directly whether the Western Force are successful over there. I think there are room for both, but look, the Force are obviously struggling. They're not getting enough fans through the gates for their home games. They've been propped up in the past by private ownership. The mining magnate that's obviously over there, Andrew, Twiggy Forrest, and maybe they're looking to re-look at that model now as well. The Perth Bears, probably good to add as well, are going to be a not-for-profit club over in the West, which is great because private ownership, it can work both ways. Just look at our rival, the Manly Seagulls right now. They're struggling and they're rudderless, and the top-down leadership is one of the main reasons for that. Scott Penn has no idea what he's doing. He's over in New York doing whatever he's doing, and they continue to make terrible decisions over here in the East. So now whether that sort of impacts funding down the track once the locked-in funding for the Bears is re-looked at, we'll have to wait and see. That's a long time away. But right now, the only thing is there was supposed to be a center of excellence built for both the Bears and the Force over in the West. Now, whether that now has to come under reconsideration, we'll have to wait and see. But right now, look, I don't think that it should have us fearing for interest over in the West. You listen to Billy Moore on the Big Bears podcast from the other week, the club's official pod channel. He's got all expectations that we're going to be selling out most home games in that first year and beyond, and propping up crowds for the Sydney-based games as well. And I would tend to agree with all of that.
100%. I said, as I said, initially I was like, oh crap, what does this mean for our team? But then when I read the fact that the juniors have increased, it just shows that the state is actually getting behind it. And I do feel for the Western Force. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for them. I've always liked them, and I think they used to have a good business model, and I think I like what they did, which is sad. But is them struggling more a sign of rugby union in Australia dying, as opposed to, because I remember there was a stage there where they were doing quite well. Like, they weren't amazing, but they were one of the better teams in Australia. And when they were removed they were part of that other competition, which they had a lot of success in. I'm wondering whether or not the rugby union's difficulty in Australia is one of the reasons as to why it's struggling, which, again, as you say, wouldn't really affect us much because going by the fact that the grassroots is increasing, the numbers are increasing, it's a great future. I also don't reckon we'll have much problem financially because we all know that North Sydney have been wanting this club for many, many years, and I think regardless of whether or not they win, lose or draw, rain, hail or shine, they'll turn up. Phil, as you know, I'm from the country, and you've been listing some players who you think might be worth talking about.
Yes. So as teased from last week, I want to talk about the Central West and Central West connections. Mitch, you're from Wellington, out a short drive from Dubbo.
Yep.
And look, currently we've got one officially on our books, Liam Henry from Blaney. I was actually out in Orange at a wedding on the weekend.
Yeah, lovely.
And Tino Maliaui's roots are from there, and he was linked to us at one point. His brother is more from just
Gympie?
up further north, so Gympie, yeah. So not technically Central West, but you look at some of the players that we've been linked to as well. So Matt Burton, Dubbo, Connor Watson, who's 29 now, Dubbo. And then you sort of think about a couple of other targets, but I think it's potentially a deliberate ploy from the Bears recruiting staff to look at players from the country who have already had to face a couple of relocations across their career that might be open to another one, and players from the country as well that might be open to a lifestyle over in Perth, which is just a bit less hustle and bustle than a Sydney or even a Brisbane or a Melbourne potentially as well. And, there's probably a couple more fringe recruiting options that we could look at again from, you bring in a bunch of players with sort of similar lived experience that can help build community and culture over in the West. And, I'm maybe looking at guys like Billy Burns, who's a Parks product, who's at the Sharks right now. He's been an important piece for them, with Nickera not playing plenty of footy last season. Charlie Staines, who's actually over playing with Toby Sexton right now at Catalans.
Ferrari.
The Forbes Ferrari, of course, as well.
Sure is.
And then maybe, look, there's a marquee, someone that comes off contract at the end of 2027. Maybe we can potentially even convince Elliot Yeo to come and finish his career. He'd be 33.
You mean Isaiah?
Isaiah, did I say Elliot again? That's a different WA Yo.
That's a me thing to do, Phil.
I knew it would happen. Isaiah Yo, not the West Coast Eagles midfielder. But,
Elliot would be good as well. Let's be honest.
Maybe there is you potentially get Isaiah Yo for his age 33, 34, 35 season. Maybe you have to give him that extra year contract to actually convince him to move him and his family over there. But I'm listing off a bunch of names, but it does seem like a bit of a theme, this whole Central West idea.
100%. And the other one I want to add is Jack Whiten. He's from Orange. And I think and we're looking for some seniority in our halves division. I think he would be good to have. I don't think it'd cost that much because of the squeeze that's happening at the Bunnies. If we were to go for him, I don't think it'd cost us a lot of money. I think he's got a good brain. But yes, look, growing up in the Central West, rugby league was always about just an out. There was a passion. These kids were passionate about them, and growing, we were never really afraid to move away from home. The kids have sort of been like, okay, we have to move away. And as you say, going to the city, the bright lights of the city was great. Growing up, a lot of us didn't actually like Sydney that much. We thought it was just a bit crap in many ways. But I think, as you say, Perth being a bit far away, a bit less hustle and bustle, bit like, the Oranges or the Bathursts, in that terms of sort of feel, but on the beach. Sort of that sort of, a lot of the people in the country loved that area. They looked people like places like Newcastle and things like that were always a bit of a Brisbane, or always sort of a bit of a priority over, say, Sydney. But I think yes, I think we grow them pretty resilient in in Central West. I'm an exception, but but yes, I honestly think Elliott / Isaiah Yeo would be a great signing. Because all those players.
He's played how many Origins? He's played how many Test matches? He's won how many
Hail Mary.
premierships?
Hail Mary, because
get his name right.
Yeah, Hail Mary. But I actually completely forgot that Connor Watson was from Dubbo. That's a bit embarrassing. But
and
yes,
he has been linked to the
Yes,
club.
he has.
He'd be a really good signing for us as well. He's
he would.
29 now.
Yes.
Look,
I can't really add much.
country players, they're easy to root for. They they play a blue collar brand of footy, and they're so fun to watch. So the more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. Look, the Staines one would be interesting, but I'll get to why a little bit later in the show. Mitch, we'll jump to you again. What do you want to talk about?
Look, my boy
Shibasaki.
Yep. He was dropped, as you probably be aware, on the weekend. Now
relegated to the bench, not dropped out of the side altogether.
Well, relegated to the bench. Like dropped, But I reckon there's more to that than in him being, having defensive issues. Because he's pretty solid, and I think with all this talk about whether or not he's going to stay, whether he's going to go, the club was hasn't been doing very well. I think he might be a bit of a scapegoat in the sense of, they need to sort of blame someone, and they think, okay, well, defensively we're going to nitpick, but.
And he didn't get on, by the way, in that game.
No, he didn't.
The Broncos only used the 2 subs, which was interesting.
Very, very weird. But I think that I think that's a real chance for us to swoop on him, because if they are going to say, well, we want you to commit before we prioritize you, then just swoop on him. We get him tomorrow,
and he's ripe. He's out of contract at the end of this year.
100%. And look, he's probably not my idea of a marquee, but he'd be a solid signing just because he hasn't been around for long enough. But see, Isaiah Yeo would be an absolute marquee.
He'd be another player with Origin experience, and I'm
100%.
pretty sure right now on our list there's only one, which is Talakai. So and I think you're right. Right now is a little buy low window as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't, quickly force his way back into that Broncos starting side, because Mariner was one of their best players on the weekend who was moved into the centres, then Shibasaki could find himself on the outside looking in for a little bit longer than just, a week or two. And we're recording at lunchtime on a Tuesday. We may well be proven to be idiots by the time we get to 4 o'clock Australian Eastern Daylight Time. We'll wait and see. But there could be a little buy opportunity right now, and we're talking about a guy that, maybe is not playing his best footy this year, and maybe the majority of his career would prove that he is kind of a fringe average player, but he's also a player that, from all reports, brings really high training standards and work ethic, and just the way he goes about it as a professional. That sounds like the kind of player we're going to need starting a brand new franchise in the NRL.
Absolutely. And I suppose the other thing we have to sort of we can't ignore is there's a bit of turbulence going around Brisbane at the moment. So he might just be a bit disgruntled. He might be like, I don't really, not buying into it as much. And look, you can't go past his form last year. So if, even if he turns up and plays even 80% of what he did last year, he's absolutely a signing worth looking into. So, Phil, you wanted to talk about the New South Wales Cup.
Yeah, and this will be a really quick one, but something I found just absolutely wild. So the North Sydney Bears playing in the New South Wales Cup, of course, as they have been for much of recent history. But because I'm a North Sydney Bears member as well, I plan on obviously being an inaugural Perth Bears member when that becomes an option. And I did see them actually advertising for someone who I'm pretty sure is going to be handling that on LinkedIn last week. So stay tuned on that front, I suppose. But In the first 10 rounds of the New South Wales Cup, the Bears have one home game. I've never seen anything like it. I'm not sure if there's a reason for it. Maybe North Sydney Oval is a little bit out of action right now. We're coming off a bye last weekend. So round 3 was last weekend and the Bears had a bye. So they didn't get on, but their first 2 games were away. They've got another bye in round 7. Their one home game is on Sunday, April 12 against the Raiders, 3 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, a game that I certainly plan on getting to. But, I mean, RIP opportunities to get to North Sydney Oval before the weather turns really, really south for the winter in Sydney. So that is just wild. And the side are a 1 win and 1 loss to start the season. They went down narrowly to the Panthers in round 1 before bouncing back against Western Suburbs in Lidcombe in round 2. But they've got Gerringong they're down in Gerringong this weekend, then they're at Brookvale, then they've got that Raiders home game, then another bye, then they're over in Hamilton. And they've got a couple of away Sydney-based games after that before they host the Roosters on May 16. So in round 11, it's just absolutely crazy. And if someone has any idea how the Bears have been, how they've drawn that short straw, maybe there is a logical explanation behind it, but I would love to hear it. Now, look, we're running out of time. So, Mitch, we're going to keep moving.
Yes.
To round out the episode, no 3-2-1s for this week. We'll come back to that format next week. We probably can't do it every week, just given how many players are actually, Bears contracted players right now, and the amount of performances that we're kind of judging on a week-to-week basis. But a target or a type of target that you would like to see the recruitment team look at next. It can be a player, it can be a position, it can be a philosophy. Kick us off.
I think I'll try and keep it brief because I'm very passionate today. But Tanner Boyd and/or Jamie Humphries for a half. I think Tanner Boyd is an example of players who can all of a sudden flick a switch and excel, which I think a lot of our players. I think if we were to miss out on Burton, he'd be almost on par, if in many ways probably a bit better. I think he's phenomenal. His maturity's gone through the roof. His game sense is also, not only caught up with the NRL standard, but I think he can only get better and better. The other one I think we'll watch this space is Jamie Humphries from the Bunnies. With Payne Haas being signed, they've stalled his contract talks. They initially they tabled a contract offer. He said no. The tournament said, okay, we're going to have to wait because we have to make sure that we can sign everyone under the salary cap. Now, if he's your halfback who's basically helped stabilise that back line, you'd think he'd be almost a bit of a priority. So I think he'd be very much gettable. I think he'd be serviceable. I think he won't cost us heaps. And yeah, they're my main two. But what about yourself? What do you think?
Yeah, and just quickly, both of those guys are off contract at the end of the season. They're gettable right now.
Yes.
And just on Tanner Boyd, so look, obviously coming off essentially a career game for the Warriors on the weekend, and he's putting up a major fight to hold his spot, even when all the Warriors injured halves return eventually, Metcalf included. But I would like to reserve judgment until I see Boyd potentially play alongside Metcalf, because I think, their skill sets overlap quite a bit, and Tanner Boyd's skill set probably overlaps a little bit too much with Toby Sexton's for my liking. But can Boyd complement Metcalf for the Warriors? That would be the thing that I'm looking at, because I'm really happy with the Sexton signing, and I think he can be the 7 for the first little era of the Perth Bears over in the West. And Boyd could be a good shout as well. Do we need both of them? I'm not sure. Can they coexist, or are we signing one of them to be sort of the backup option? Time will tell, I suppose. But do their skill sets overlap a little bit too much where, say Sexton is our 7, we probably want more of a run first 6 to complement him in the halves.
Yeah, and yes, but that's the thing that I've been noticing about him. He is a bit more. He has been running a bit more, and I think that I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I wouldn't say no to an opportunity for him to actually fit that 6 jersey. Like, I know, it's not far-fetched, but watching him play now compared to what he did when he was at the Titans, etc., he is not afraid to run. Like, he's scored a couple of tries because he's not afraid to run it. Look, I could talk for hours about this, but I think even if they did overlap, I do think they'll be able to coexist. I do, and I don't think it'll mean that signing him would mean that we have to push Sexton out, because I do like the Sexton signing. I do, but almost if that's the case with Jamie Humphries, he can play 6, 7, and 9. And I think he's happy just to sort of sit in and sort of play that. That's the other thing. But Jack Whiten, he's another one. He's off contract at the end of this year too. He plays 6 mainly. So there's lots of options, but I think those two are the ones that I think watch this space for, because I think they would be great additions if for whatever reason Matt Burton says no.
And nothing would satisfy me more than watching a Manly product end up excelling for the Bears one day in
100%.
Humphries, because we've seen enough of those go the other way over the years.
100%. Just one more thing on this note. Do you think, for whatever reason, Tanner Boyd and Matt Burton can be in the same team?
Yeah, why not?
But what would that mean for the likes of Sexton? Would you?
Well, that's the problem. But yeah, Boyd would be 7 and Burton would be 6 if those two were in the same halves.
I wouldn't say no to that. Would not say no to that at all.
Interesting.
Yes.
We'll move it on.
No, I said I could talk about this for hours, and we don't have hours.
I know. So I've got a list of every player that we've signed right now, going through position by position. The spot where we're sort of still looking a little bit lean is out wide, and particularly wing, on the wing, because Harry Newman, Chris Veilla from Cronulla, and Sean Russell, all probably centres, you would say. Luke Rowley.
Harry can play wing.
They can play wing.
No. As in he often does switch to wing during games, but he starts as a centre. That's just an idea. But he would be more of a centre, but he can quite comfortably play wing. Good
to know. Either way. We've got Meaney as a centre option as well, I should point out. And some of us are predicting him to play 1. I threw out Luke Lowry-Leahy as an option maybe to do that, having done so in younger years as far as rep teams are concerned as well. But he's also a capable wing option. What I want us to go and find next, and I don't have the perfect answer on this, I must admit, but I'm also not paid to make these decisions. I'll have an opinion on it though, but we need a yardage winger, and particularly, again, so one of the things which has been circulating through players in the early portion of this season is how the repeat set rule change has impacted games, and it's brought so much fatigue back into the contest, and something has to give back at HQ to be like, this isn't good. The blowouts aren't great. The fatigue has gone too far. We probably saw Jermaine Hopgood's season end on the weekend because of fatigue with the hip drop tackle. That was the opinion of Jason Riles. There are consequences for the fatigue that is in footy. But either way, when we get to next year and the year after that, there is no question that the NRL still wants there to be a level of fatigue in the contest to slow down the wrestle. And what that's meaning is players that play as middle forwards in the NRL so far this season are struggling to get back and take the third carry of a set. So there's more emphasis and pressure on outside backs to be yardage options for teams coming out of their own half. And there was a point where before Brian To'o got re-signed at the Panthers, and I was involved in plenty of conversations with my producing job at the time involving Josh Mansour, funnily enough, who was one of the best back in the day. Yardage wingers. The argument was made that Brian To'o should be a $1 million player.
Oh, yeah.
And I was all
Hands
for
down.
that because he's not just a winger, and we saw what he can do on the weekend. He can do the sort of the freakish stuff
how
as well,
good.
but it's the yardage work that that some wingers have in their repertoire that I think we need to prioritize, particularly with the way that the game is trending, and if fatigue and these this repeat set fast that is going to stay in the game, then we need to make sure that we've got some outside backs that really have that yardage skill set to their repertoire. I don't have the perfect answer because you look around the league and some of the good ones, for example, a Greg Marziu, he also has plenty of errors in his game.
Yeah.
And Brian To'o's now, signed up long-term for the Panthers. Otherwise, I'd say let's just, blank check
him.
in his direction. But
Yep.
maybe Charlie Staines is a cheap option who has proven that he's NRL caliber in the past. He's over in the Super League right now, playing his trade there, maturing again, Central West connections. He can also play a bit of fullback. Maybe he's one that we go after that does, he's got that fearless running ability, and he looks a bit thicker than maybe he was sort of in, 2-3 years ago as well. So there's one little option that maybe we can sort of have a little bit of a sniff around at.
Just before we finish, what about Selwyn Cobbo? Very interesting story.
Yeah.
Very interesting because he's only signed 1 year at the Dolphins. He is on the way up in terms of his form. He is running a lot more. Do we throw?
He's been up there for average run meters across the early part of the season as well.
And Tuolungi from the Cowboys. Apparently, he's not as overly happy with the Cowboys, and obviously with the Cowboys' form at the moment, he very much be an option that I think we could go for. But again, I won't talk about this for too long. I could talk about it for ages. What I will do though, on our Reddit, I will put up a post so we can have this continue the conversation for those who are interested. But yeah, other than that, there's a whole handful. But I think you're right. Yardage is very important. But if we could clone Brian To'o, I'd have 19 players of him. He could probably, if he wanted him to, he could play any position.
The To'o clone reportedly is this Fiamani who's playing for the Titans on the right wing. He's kind of like a smaller version, I suppose. And Hannay went out of his way to go and sign him apparently. But and maybe there's another one out there somewhere that we can unearth. But yeah,
from the Raiders, Tamale, I think he's a young fella and he's signed a couple of years. He's on the up and up.
Savelio Tamale, according to NRL.com, off contract at the end of this season.
Is he now?
So there you go. That's the answer. That is the answer. I'm pretty sure he's at the very tippy top of average run meters across the first 3 rounds. Let's finish on a high of coming to that conclusion. Tamale, let's get him. Let's get him for the Perth Bears.
Get him
Mitch,
in.
Thank you very much.
Always.
And a big thank you to the listeners that did make it, or the viewers, all the way to the end of this episode. Please find us on Instagram at the Grizzwolds NRL. We'll start chucking up some content there as of this week. The Grizzwolds NRL on YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts, your preferred podcast player, hit subscribe, hit the plus sign, hit follow. Please subscribe to the Grizzwolds. We'll be back next week.